Outside the Houses of Parliament in London sits one of the most famous monuments in Britain. It shows the ultimate native rebel, a fierce warrior queen with flowing hair, riding a scythed chariot, fearlessly defending her island from foreign invaders. But we have zero physical evidence of what she actually looked like. There are no descriptions recorded during her lifetime, and no known grave. Even the name Boudica might just be an honorific title. In a Brythonic Celtic language, it translates simply to victorious. The towering bronze icon we recognize today is a modern invention. To find the actual historical figure, we have to look past the art and dig straight into the dirt. Beneath modern British cities, archaeologists regularly hit a highly specific, scorched layer of earth. These are the remains of clay and timber walls, baked red by an incredibly intense fire around the year 60 AD. This chart shows the geographical footprint of that destruction. You can trace this exact same burn horizon, which is up to half a meter deep in some places, across 3 major Roman settlements: Colchester, St. Albans, and London. The archaeological record confirms that a massive native revolt took place. The rebels slaughtered the inhabitants of these wealthy trading hubs, smashed their commercial warehouses, and burned them to the ground. The ashes prove the raw scale of her rebellion, but they cannot tell us her motives. For that, we have to rely entirely on the written records of the exact people she was trying to annihilate. Every written detail we have about Boudica's revolt comes from exactly 2 Roman historians, Publius Cornelius Tacitus and Cassius Dio. Tacitus writes that when Boudica's husband, the king of the Iceni tribe, died, the Romans ignored his will. They confiscated his lands, flogged Boudica, and raped her 2 daughters. Cassius Dio, writing over a century later, offers a completely different trigger. He claims the natives rebelled because Roman financiers suddenly demanded the repayment of massive forced loans. Dio also takes severe creative liberties. He outfits Boudica with sweeping, dramatic speeches she almost certainly never gave, and he specifically invents the terrifying glare and mass of tawny hair that define her popular image today. These texts are not objective historical journalism. They are carefully crafted pieces of political propaganda. To a highly patriarchal Roman audience, the concept of a dux femina, a female military commander, was deeply unsettling. It represented a chaotic subversion of their natural social order. Roman authors weaponized that cultural anxiety. They constructed Boudica as a towering barbarian boogeyman, designed specifically to shock and disgust their domestic readers back in Rome. This exaggerated threat had massive political utility. By framing the Britons as wild savages led by a terrifying matriarch, Rome manufactured the perfect excuse to brutally crush the rebellion and permanently occupy the island. When the Roman legions ultimately routed Boudica's army, the writers framed it as an inevitable return to civilized order. Her defeat was written as undeniable proof of Roman superiority. The Roman version of Boudica was a literary device. She was engineered to validate imperial dominance, not to record native British history. Nearly 2 millennia later, the historical irony comes full circle. A woman who slaughtered thousands of imperial colonizers was adopted as the ultimate mascot for the British Empire. In the 19th century, Queen Victoria was presiding over a rapidly expanding global domain. To legitimize that massive reach, the culture required an ancient native origin story. They found a highly convenient parallel in the ancient queen. The Celtic name Boudica and the Latin name Victoria carried the exact same meaning. To make this violent pagan warrior palatable for a conservative Victorian audience, writers actively scrubbed her history. They erased the massacres and blood sacrifices, replacing them with a narrative of a noble, duty-bound mother protecting her nation. The Victorians did not discover the real Boudica. They reverse-engineered her to soothe their own imperial ambitions and anxieties. Over time, her visual identity merged with Britannia, the classical personification of the island itself. The chaotic rebel was smoothed out into a righteous, patriotic defender of the motherland. You can spot the fiction right in the artwork. Look at the blades attached to the wheels of her chariot. Ancient Britons never used scythed chariots. That was a Roman invention. Strip away the Victorian romanticism and the Roman propaganda, and you are left with the burnt earth. She was a real, horribly wronged woman who managed to ignite one of the most devastating fires in British history. But the soaring speeches, the nationalist pride, and the terrifying glare draped over her statue, that is merely the sound of empires talking to themselves.